Hello, my name's Pamela Strobar. I'm an artist in Las Cruces, New Mexico, US, and I've created a book for artists to help them keep organized with their art projects. And I wanted to show you how I use my personal My Art History book. I call it My Art History because that's exactly what it is. And I've got my book right here. This is my personal one. You can see I've got a lot of projects in it. But as I'm starting a new project right now, I thought I would just go ahead and show what I do when starting a new project page in my art history book. So project page is this page right here. And what I do is for each painting, I'll pull out a page and start what I can in the information in the book. So I don't have a title for this piece yet, so I'm not putting anything in that slot. The date started, I can put obviously today, which is June 5th, and I mistakenly put May 5th on there, but I'll fix that. I put the size that the piece is going to be. On here I put 9 by 11. This is going to be a watercolor piece on paper. I leave the for sale and where section blank because I don't know yet. In the series, I put botanical watercolors because I am doing a lot of botanical watercolors right now. I leave the price slot blank. The substrate I certainly know is 100% cotton, hot press, 140-pound paper by Fabriano. And the medium is all watercolor. So those I can fill in. I don't have any notes on the materials yet, so those lines will be blank. And then the squares that you see, that top line is squares. I've put in my book for swatching your main palette for the piece you're going to do. So the piece I'm going to do is a botanical of these roses that I took a photograph of in Albuquerque at a botanical garden. So the first thing I'm going to do is match up colors. You'll see my botanical palette is there to the right. I'm going to pull it over further here in a second. There we go. So that's my full botanical palette. And I've got a card swatched with all of the colors that I keep in that palette. And so the first thing I'm going to do is find like the families of colors that I'm going to be using and move on from there. So I can see like the quin pinks, quin roses, quin corals in that area is where I'm going to definitely start because that's matching up really nicely. And so I've just got a spare piece of watercolor paper here that I'm using to swatch on. And what I want to do is swatch the mass tone of the color, and then I'm going to water it down to a much lighter tone so that I can see the gamut of what I can get with that color that will match with these roses. Now this is going to dry down much lighter. All watercolor pigments do. So I need to take that into consideration as well. So there you see I'm matching that pigment up, and then I'm taking the next one to see if it matches any better, if I can use it for a different part of the flower. There are several different colors of pinks, oranges, and yellows in these roses. And so I'm going to do my best to match up the main blocks of color that I can and mix from there. So both of those wash out to a very similar color, but in mass tone are one's a little more red, one's a little more pink, and they will both be helpful in this painting. And then here I'm pointing out that center area is got much more orange and yellow going on. And so I also swatch out the quinacridone coral, and that really is going to be very helpful in this piece. That's the one I'm swatching right now. On the screen it looks much more orange than it is. It is quite pink. But as I wash it out, you'll see the tone that it gives that's, not quite as purple pink is gonna really help in those other parts of the flowers you can see there. And now that I've gotten those three main ones, I don't work from a limited palette. I work from the colors that I think are going to work the best and then mix into those, no matter how many colors that is. Like, well, I'm not going to do 10, but you know what I mean. I use what I think is appropriate, and I don't mix so much that I get mud. I don't like that. So that is a mixture of buff titanium and quinacridone coral, and that is going to help where the petals are lighter, or the light is hitting those petals more and getting that grungier pink color. And then I'm adding some yellow ochre as well, and that's going to help get that orangey yellow middle tone. It's like perfect, actually. And then you'll see I actually lift some of that color also, just so that when it dries I can see what is the lightest tone I'm going to get of that mixture. So I'm happy with all of the pinks that are there and that I created. And so I'm going to go ahead and get my project page from my book, and I'm going to add all of those pigments to that top line of boxes to show these are the colors I'm using in this project. If I end up not using one, I can always cross it out later, but I don't want to forget what I used and what I mixed as I go in the project. So that's why I do this now. And so I fill in the brand and the color name for each one of them, and then mixes I do the color name plus color name. Sometimes I'll even do the formula of the mixes of like 50 to 50 or 30 percent, whatever. So all of that information is listed here. So the top line generally is my standard palette colors I've picked out, and the bottom line is generally mixes that I've made from those colors. If I have more colors than boxes in that first line, I'll take it down to the second line and add as I go. So I'm going to go ahead and swatch all of the pinks. And so we've got the Quin Coral, quinacridone pink, and quinacridone rose. Those I believe are all from Daniel Smith. The buff titanium that I use is from Daniel Smith, and the yellow ochre is also from Daniel Smith. So I think every single one of the paints that I'll be using for the rose petals, flowers themselves, are going to be Daniel Smith. And when we get to the greens, I'll use another brand as well. But for the flowers themselves, it's all Daniel Smith. And my palette here is all squeezed from tubes because I just enjoy working that way the best, at least in studio. If I'm out painting plein air or something like that, I don't mind taking, the little pre-poured pans with me in a smaller palette. But in studio, I prefer to work, from tubes. They just feel fresher and juicier to me, more lively. And I'm sorry I keep poking my head in the camera, but there we are. So my project page eventually is going to have all of the colors that I use in the project. And I've listed, any formulas, mixes that I've used so that I can go back and recreate all of these colors if I want to. And then at the bottom, there's a section for notes that, if I want to say I paint this painting today, and then a year from now, I'm going back looking for rose paintings, and I see this one and I think it needs some more work or something like that, I can pull my project page, see what's been done, but I can also list the changes that I'd like to make to that painting when I get around to it. So it's kind of a journal as well. You can use this book in so many ways, in any way you like. You could turn the page over, paint on the back, add notes on the back, the provenance of the piece, how many different places has it shown at, and when, and where is it stored, and, all the information that you want to keep about your art project can all be listed in this book. Also, in the back section of the book, of every book, there's a section of just swatch sheets. So you can swatch all the paints you have, or whatever material you use, pencils, pens, inks, chalks, pastels, oils, whatever it is that you use, you can swatch out in that back section. And then when you go to an art supply store, take your book with you, and you'll know what pigments you have, which ones you don't, and you're not double buying any colors or anything like that. Or you can see you marked that you ran out of this color, so you know to pick that up. That it's very, very helpful. And the watercolor journal here is only 6 inches by 9 inches. It's, it's small enough to fit into a bag. The mixed media journal is 9 by 12. It's a little bigger, but nobody looks at you funny for taking it around the art supply store. You know what I mean? Or you can just take your swatch pages with you. It's really, really versatile. You can take pages out, you can put pages back in, and that's one of the wonderful things about it, that it's very, very customizable to each artist. And you have all the information that you need for each project right there on hand. If I had 3 different reference images for this piece that I'm working on, I can print those, punch them with the puncher for the journal that you can get at the craft store, and put it in my book, and I'll have all of my reference photos right there in my art history book. So that's another wonderful thing. You can find the punch at your local craft store and add in anything you want into this book, and then it's a scrapbook, it's a journal, it's a planner, it's anything you need it to be. And then once you've got a book full like I do here, you can start a new one. You can take every piece of paper off the rings, put that all in a binder somewhere or in a folder, whatever you want to do, and take your rings and start a new book if you like. You can buy refills for not only the project sheets, but also for your swatch pages, and you add those to your book or start a new book and have at it. You can create your own cover to your book, or you can use the one I've created for you. There's a page specifically in your book for you to create one yourself if you like. So, it's the most customizable book out there, I think. And I think I've kind of thought of everything that I would need for my book. But if you have suggestions, let me know. Mixed media book, the larger book, can hold just about any medium. I can't think of anything that it can't take. And this small book, this water media book, it can pretty much hold everything too. The difference is the water media book is the paper is 25% cotton, and therefore your watercolor and gouache and everything lays very nicely in it. For the mixed media book, it is not 25% cotton paper. It's just your standard art paper. So that would be the difference. I mean, it's still thick and heavy duty. It's just doesn't have that 25% cotton that's nice for water media. So keep that in mind. I have all of them professionally printed with waterproof ink and archival ink, so you don't have to worry about your media smudging the ink. And so that's super nice. And I love the printers that I work with, so they're really wonderful. And I put these all together myself, and I enjoy doing that. So now I've got my green swatched out for my leaves and stems, and I'm adding in the colors that I use for that. So you can see I've used sap green, bamboo green, rich green gold, and French Ultramarine. So all of those are Daniel Smith except for the Bamboo Green, which is like a phthalo green yellow shade. That bright one there, that's the Mission Gold Bamboo Green. And the rest are Daniel Smith. And so I add those in, and then I add my mixes there at the end. And that is my colors ready, you know, swatched in there for this project that I'm going to be doing. That's my starting place. I may tweak these, I may add some, I may delete some. I may decide I only need one of those bright pinks and take one out. I'll just put a big black X over it, knowing I didn't use it in the piece. And I'll take notes as I'm painting this painting. I don't usually work on hot press paper, so I intend to make a lot of notes about how that paper behaves. And this being like maybe the third piece that I've used that paper for, I intend to have notes on, okay, this is how it behaves trying to do this kind of wash, or, you know, details or whatever it is. So there's my greens in there. And then I'm just putting, you know, what colors I mix to get those mixes. And this is a standard palette for my botanical work, so I know all of those colors will stay in that palette unless they discontinue it or something like that. And it's loosely based on Sandrine Moggy's botanical palette. It's a big one. There's 33 colors in this palette because I love a convenience color, but you know, you can work from a very restricted palette if you like. This is my drawing, and I'm showing you that I used a watercolor pencil from Caran d'Ache Supercolor line to do the sketch, so that way I'm not worried about my pencil lines really glaring, because as I get that page wet with painting, it's going to sort of melt that watercolor pencil into the background. It's not going to be really bold. And so that's nice. It kind of is like water soluble, so it just sort of blends in. And then the last thing I want to show you here is this Core synthetic oxgall. Because I moved to New Mexico from Ohio, I had to get used to the idea of there being no humidity. It's very, very dry here. And that means my paint and paper dries very, very quickly. And I have had to get used to that. The synthetic oxgall sort of slows that drying time and lets my blends work a little better, and it's worked amazingly. And I can't remember whose tip that was, but it's fantastic. So I like using that. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take this big giant Neptune brush, and I'm going to get some really big puddles of my main colors that I'm going to be using in this painting. So there's my quinacridone coral. I'll get my queen pink, my queen rose, and my green, and I will get after this painting. If it comes out nice, then I'll post it. If not, you may never see it again. But that is pretty much the way I go about using my art history book myself personally in my art practice. And I can fill out as I go what I know, and I can add things as I go and take notes. And it is really wonderful because I know I always have something to refer to when I have a question about a piece. If somebody's asking me something about a piece, more than likely the information is going to be in my book, and it's been a wonderful companion for all kinds of art projects. So if you have any questions, please let me know. You can buy these books in person here in Las Cruces, New Mexico at Freeman Art Center. You can also get it on my website at PamelaStrobar.com. And you can contact me personally, and I can, find a way to get it shipped to you. So however you like to do that, just let me know. And